talk to you about 50 plus years of working with these guys. It's been an amazing and wonderful trip. But I'm going to start with something weird. I went to art school in 1961, and it was a strange year because we all assume that modern art is a product of artists, that artists start movements and they gain momentum, they gain popularity, they fade, other movements come along. But the modern art movement is unlike that. It was a dictate from the government in England, government in America. Very odd, that. And pretty much the same applies to modern architecture. And modern architecture is weird because it's based on the thoughts of the Bauhaus. The Bauhaus was a group of architects and designers and artists. Some of them became devout Nazis, and the rest of them were communists. And they became the powerhouse for modern design in the West. It's strange. And in a way, weird because it never really worked. That kind of totalitarian feel remained. And I went to art school in 1961. 4 or 5 days after my 17th birthday, I was in a room with 30 other people who were equally ignorant. None of us knew what we were doing. And we were supposed to be drawing a naked lady. I personally found that utterly impossible. It was impossible to draw when you're too embarrassed to look. A few days after that, it was made much worse for me because the principal took me out of that class and said, "You're not meant to be doing in fine art," because I had maths and physics. I was sent to do industrial design, which kind of worked for me because I'd always had a dream of designing the future from about the age of 12. I got the idea from a comic where there was a pilot of the future, space opera, and I thought that was such a cool thing. So I went to do this, and there's two significant things about 1961. Fine art stopped being taught as a discipline in art school, and there was a lot of very good artists and teachers who had, well, basically at a loose end, and they taught us. So I was doing industrial design, but I was being taught all the disciplines that fine artists were taught in the past. Life drawing, perspective, measure perspective, shadow perspective, all that kind of stuff. So I had a great grounding in draftsmanship. But in the design field, I really couldn't come to terms with designing boxes for people. It simply didn't work for me. And when I went to the Royal College of Art, I was given consent to do some research into what kind of spaces people actually thrive in, what kind of spaces make people feel good, and what kind of spaces make them feel anxious or distressed. I'm also going to show you pictures. So this was my final year project at the Royal College, and in doing my research, I wasn't very good at it. I wasn't a researcher or a scientist, I was a designer. And I wasn't getting anywhere until a friend of mine, who was a teacher, took my questionnaire and asked a bunch of 8-year-olds. Now, we were researching where people slept, because that's where they felt they're most anxious and where the feelings about space were most intense. But the kids, for the first time, came up with really strong responses. When asked what they didn't like hidden spaces, they didn't like full-length covers, clothes hanging on the back of doors, all kinds of things that were an easy fix. when we asked them what they wanted, it was much more complex. Kids wanted tree houses, caves, palaces, castle turrets, all kinds of wonderful things. But one child described a space they could feel in the dark, there was nothing there. And an entrance they could physically control, and they wanted to be high enough off the ground that people couldn't loom over them. So this is what I designed and built, basically copying those movements. This is many years later. This is my daughter sitting in it. And this is extrapolating from those ideas into the whole house. Those ideas, in essence, were about defendable space. And then I started building full-size prototypes. So we looked at about 120 negative things to be removed from a design and about 80 things to be included. But I'm only going to talk about two. The one I have with the children's bed, and in this is the other one. This is a bedroom with a spiral staircase rising 3 steps, clockwise. And castles in Europe and castles in Japan all have the sleeping accommodation at the top of a clockwise winding staircase. And the reason is, it's defendable against an attacker with a spear or a sword. They're off balance, the defender is in balance. Now, you probably don't need to imagine them being attacked by someone with a spear or a sword, but you have an intuitive sense that you are in a strong position. It's all about intuition. It's a kind of, if you like, a martial art of architecture. Built very high off the ground, as you can see. I liked the arts and crafts movement, and I didn't want it to look science fiction-y, so we included a lot of woodworking and detailing like this. Now, this is a Yes cupboard. This is classic Yes. And it was also a design for a hotel in Darling Harbour in Australia. And Steve's first solo album, Beginnings. Also a design for a spa. So this is where drawing helped me. Designing shapes of things that couldn't be portrayed in the 3-view elevations, drawing was very useful. This is a covered walkway in a park in Malaysia. Quickly about this one. I was asked to work with a group of people who are designing a moon base in Hawaii, because the regolith in Hawaii is very similar to that on the moon. And because if people were living on the moon, it would be an unbelievably hostile environment and unbelievably isolated, and mental health was an issue. So these were meant to be accommodations that were underground. And this is a visitor centre, which I hope when I go back, we're going to have talks about the possibility of building this next year. Small hotel. Okay, this is when I started doing album covers. All the early work were drawings. This was a drawing. These are drawings. Pen and ink and pencil and watercolour. Drama. I love this. I love machine style. So, there is a story. I do get asked occasionally, what's this all about? And there's an answer. Yes went to Japan in 1973, and I went with them. And everyone was told, don't take drugs into Japan. Of course, no one would have imagined doing such a thing. But there was a group of people who made a cake for the band as a going away present. And the cake was distributed by John to everyone on the plane. And he sat by me and he said, okay, let's talk about the new album. And I couldn't say a word all the way to Anchorage. Nor could he, by the way. We both sat there stunned. But from Anchorage to Tokyo, I couldn't stop talking. I was talking about Patterns in the Landscape, a book I just worked on called Views Over Atlantis. It was about geomancy, dragon lines, ley lines, all that kind of stuff. The patterns in the deserts of Nazca, and all these rocks, for example, are all real places, all have some kind of magical connection. Anyway, John has a different version of what happened, but John and I had different sides of the cake. My favourites. My only wish about this was that the album was called Gates of Delirium. I guess if I was doing anything here, it was that. I thought Gates of Delirium would make such a brilliant title. Hello? It works. Yeah, this is a drawing, and it's hardly got any colour in it at all. You know, a few washes of dirty water is pretty much it. I have to defend myself for this piece, because when I first exhibited it, people said, look, where are the cat prints? Because on the album you can see the cat prints through the sky. In my book, you can see the cat prints in the sky. On the posters we did, you can see the cat prints in the sky. That's because the minute I finished this painting, I planned to take it to London to get it photographed, because I'd learned that I couldn't leave original art with record companies. It was a hostage to fortune. So I got 10/8 transparencies made, and overnight, the cat decided to add his contribution. I tried frantically to airbrush it out, it didn't work. But, you know, I get back and talk to the cat about staying on his side of the line, and I painted it out, which meant that the painting almost never had those paw prints for more than 24, 48 hours, but they're there forever on the album cover. This was my suggestion for going for the one. But John and I had a conversation when I went to Montreux, and I thought, no, he had some idea he wanted, so I didn't show anyone this, which was stupid. Asia. I've got a mischievous story about this. When I did the logo and I went to see the band in the studio, John Klubner was there from Geffen, and he looked at that and he said, I can't read it, it's illegible. This was the Asia logo. And I was thinking, oh God, give me a break. It's only 4 letters. I didn't say that. I said, what you really meant to do is remember it, or recognize it, not read it. So John told me a story later. He said that when they delivered the album, somebody senior in Geffen, not David Geffen, but someone very senior, took him aside and said, John, you've got a logo no one can read, you've got a cover that's way too dark, and no one can hear a hit record here. It was the best-selling record of the year, so... This is my last drawing. It's a coloured drawing. from here on in, all my work was paintings. And I love painting. Once I got started on it, I thought it was I couldn't understand why I'd never done it before. So these are paintings. Typically, my paintings are 6 foot by 4 foot. Asia's 30th. So a lot of paintings start like this. I splash paint on the canvas, leave it around in my studio, and I look at it and I get feedback from it. So they start very abstract, and gradually I figure out what the hell is going on, and then I paint it. So this is how it ended up, as Rick's Journey to the Centre of the Earth. Yeah, again, a lot of paintings start like this. When I paint it out, I leave a lot of that colour showing, and it makes the painting look very vivid. The first one of these got damaged, so I repainted it. I repainted it twice. So this is the second repainting. So you've all seen Avatar. So you know where I got the idea from.
Yes.
You have to credit David Cameron, though, because, not David Cameron, James Cameron, get that one right, because he put so much effort into making the biggest and best Yes video ever. Weirdly, though, he forgot the music. Some of these paintings take a long time, some of them not so long, because I like working fast, I like the energy of a fast painting, and I also like the qualities of one that takes a long time. So I mix and mash and play around a lot with paint. These also came from Avatar. More still. I don't know what I'd do without that film. This is a little evolution of a painting. So this is early days, this is adding a few trees, and this is how it ended up. This was done for an opera, for Puccini. Puccini Festival, I think it was the 150th anniversary in Terra del Lago in Italy. And I did the sets, my daughter did the costumes, and we both worked on the poster. So in this you can see the underpainting of this is done very fast, probably less than a minute of swirling shapes, and then painting on top is much slower. So it's a mix of careful tiling with paint and very quick movement. It's to try and get the quality of a sketch into a painting. I'm going to tell a quick story about this. If any of you have got a 10-year-old daughter, as I did when I was doing this painting, if you go out, as I did, and come home and she said, "Dad, what do you think?" You know you're in trouble. It's either a new haircut or a new dress or something. And I eventually said, "Okay, I give in." "What?" He said, "I painted the clouds for you." And she did. This is a very quick painting. Probably took me a couple of hours. I love this one. I love working with Alan. This was for Alan's solo album, White. And I love working with the owls. I did a couple of paintings, 3 in fact, with European eagle owls. Beautiful creatures. remember going and talking to the band about this, and Chris said to me, yeah, I like it, but what's it about? So I explained that I took an idea from Heaven and Earth, from Hamlet, where there's this quote, there are more things on earth. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
More things on heaven and earth than are imagined in your philosophy, Horatio. So I wanted something strange, and that's what I was doing. And Chris said to me, yeah, okay, but why heaven and earth? I said, well, it's the title of the album. He said, no, it isn't. Fortunately for me, it became Heaven and Earth. So these paintings, there's a couple of these were painted basically in 1970, and they were just hanging around in my studio. And then in 2008 and 2011, I finished them. So it's a pair, but the colours and the marbling in the background, all from 1970. I get asked if I have any particular influences, and I spent a big chunk of my childhood in Hong Kong. Hong Kong doesn't look anything like this, but I did see a lot of Chinese painting on everything from screens to table mats, whatever, and I loved it. So this is the quest. Just one little anecdote to the side of this. We're currently looking at doing a museum for visionary and psychedelic art, and it doesn't look a lot unlike the temple on the right. In fact, it looks very like it. And, of course, Mirror to the Sky. I've been asked to tell you that the merchandising stand has the albums, and they also have a fantastic book by the Gottliebs, a great tour book. You should check it out. So, besides the paintings, I did a bunch of logos. I did all the early Virgin logos.
Awesome.
They're coming. So, I did 10 of these for Nearfest in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And this is the Asia logo, which apparently is hard to read. Done for Chris Squire. And yes, I did a lot of logos for Yes. I won't show you them all, but I'll show you a few. So I did this one, and I was signing books in San Francisco, and a young man asked me to add the Yes logo, and I drew this one, and he was not impressed. He wanted the curvy Yes logo. So I said, I can't. And he said, what do you mean you can't? Are you not allowed? I said, of course I'm allowed. I just can't remember how it goes. And he said, well, that's ridiculous. I've done it 1,000 times on my school books. I said, but I haven't. I only did it once. Well, not quite true. On a train journey from London to Brighton, I thought that the three letters could easily work together. And I did 6 sketches for it. And those 6 sketches and the logo that was on Tails all ended up in the Victoria and Albert Museum. I'm going to end now. This is the opera, sets and costumes, and this is in Tampa nearly 50 years ago at the beginning of the Tales tour. Besides everything else, we did stages for Yes. Sorry. These stages all were giant puppets and moved around. Sketch for Alan's drum kit. Okay. All right, I'm finished. Thank you very much indeed. Back there, signing stuff with my gallery after this. Thank you very much indeed.